Philip.
Put that in the oven. And serve on the bench.
Quickly.
Give me a drink, Sam. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, toast. Oh, toast.
You know, toast.
Yeah,
You never get a breakfast here and eat by yourself. Well done, Pope.
I'm not that.
Don't touch it.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, toast, Philip.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's fine.
So even though it's your 250th game, you're still on dad duty?
Yeah. Normally, like get a little sleep in this morning because it's game day and that, but just have to go about life. It's it's only us 5 years. That's it. We've got our family in England, so it's just a normal day for us. Game is not until tonight. It's only the morning.
It's lovely seeing how excited your kids are about the game today.
Yeah, they all love the rugby. He loves football. Cooper plays for the Hornets. You like rugby, don't you?
Yeah.
Tell John, who's your favourite player? Who's your favourite player in the team? Who's your favourite player, Grace?
Oh, Matty.
Matty. Oh, wrong answer. You failed. Who's your favourite
About
one?
you, ready?
Corey. Wrong again.
Not dead.
What about you, son?
Aaron.
Yes, you passed.
Yes.
They all love it. They know every player in the team. They know all the numbers. Yes, they're really immersed in the Widnes Rugby League too. So it's like a family thing. Really.
How proud are you about the 250th game achievements?
Yeah, super proud. It's been a long road, like trying to get into this point. And you see the ups and downs in the game, and just kind of being there to support. And I was thinking back when he first started, like I wasn't even pregnant with Cooper, and then now we're here, with the 3 boys. So just come a long way. Yeah, it's really cool.
What will it be like when the family walks out after the game?
I think I'll have tears in my eyes. Yeah, it'll be amazing. Just such an achievement, and we're super proud.
Have you always loved rugby league?
Yeah, I always loved rugby league. I think my dad played rugby league. Professionally in New Zealand before the game was professional. So I think I started playing when I was about 10 years old and that. And ever since then, I played, up until now.
So what was the start of your journey in terms of trying to become a professional?
Well, obviously when you're young in New Zealand, you always aspirations to play for the Warriors because they're the only team you look up to, and the guys like Stacey Jones and all that kind of stuff. And so I was always a player that going through the grades, I didn't make all the rep teams. I was never the most talented player, but I stuck in there. I worked hard and I believed that I could make it one day. But for one reason or another, I was in the Warriors Academy, and then I didn't sort of kick on. I didn't sort of kick on. So at 18 years old, I went to Australia. As you do when you're a young kid, you try and make it there because there's obviously more teams. Again, was told not good enough. It's probably not for you, blah blah blah, and then that didn't work out. But again, I was working hard, like I said, and actually I came to England. I think it was early, maybe 2000 something. I actually played for Leigh, and I really enjoyed my time there when they were playing in the championship then, and I spent 2 years there, and then obviously nothing happened then. I think around about that would have been 25 years old, and went back home, and I actually stopped playing. Ended up working with the wife's family. Wife's Italian, they got the Italian restaurant, so I started working in there. So up until then, it was, I was always striving. I was always playing for reserve grade teams, and that was a hard slog. So I've got appreciation for having to work and then train on the night time, with the goal of trying to make it into the first grade. So, for a good 5 or 6 years, that was me, just work, go to training at night, repeat, try and crack it, and it didn't happen. From New Zealand to Australia to England, and then I went back to New Zealand.
And what did that do for your character in terms of having to really struggle and having to work hard to build a career?
Oh, obviously it knocks you a bit, but I've always been quite thick-skinned in that, and probably a lot of players would have probably given up by probably 2 years into the effort, but I was 18 and then I didn't make my debut till I was 26, so that's a good 6-8 years. Just trying to make that one game, because that as a kid you just want to play one NRL game, or once you played one, you just you've made it, you're happy. And by chance I got that opportunity. I had a coach that used to coach me when I was younger. He knew I was back in New Zealand, and they had a few injuries at the Warriors reserve grade, and they had 5 games left in the season, and he said, listen, can you help us out? And I was like, I'm working in a restaurant now, I can't, the hours are, all over the place, and I won't be able to train, but I'll be happy to help out. Anyway, I played the 5 games. After the 5 games, bearing in mind I'm working at a restaurant, eating pizza and pasta, so I'm not exactly in rugby shape. So anyway, after the 5 games, Ivan Cleary, who was the head coach of the Warriors at the time, he sat me down and sort of just said, listen, come and do the off season with us, lose 10 kilos, and he said, do 13 on the beep test. You do that in the off season, and then I'll give you a contract for the rest of the year. So that's where it all started. I did that, and then I spent 3 years at the Warriors there, and made my debut. I remember it's against the Tigers. Luckily played for my country, and I played in an NRL grand final with the Warriors, which we lost in the space of 3 years. So for me, that was just enough. I was made up, from working so hard over the 6 years since I was 18 to try and make that first game, to then play your first game, play for your country, and play in the NRL grand final in the space of 3 years. For me, that was a reward for all the hard work that had been put in previously.
Was that a really sweet moment, making your debut, your professional debut?
It was because it was quite funny. I was quite sneaky about it, because people who know me would know that I've played halfback ever since I was 10, right up until I made my debut, which was at hooker. But I went into the Warriors, and at training there was like 6 halfbacks, and there was 2 hookers, and I thought, well, I'm definitely going to be the 7th halfback, but there's only 2 hookers, so I thought, all right, there's more chance of me going to get a game here at hooker than there is at halfback. So every now and then at training, I'll just slip into hooker without being asked, and then my plan sort of worked, because Ivan said, he goes, have you played hooker before? And I was like, nah, not really, but as a halfback, what your hooker wants. And he goes, you look pretty good. So then that's how I ended up playing hooker, and our hooker got injured, and then we were carrying 2 hookers, or one on the bench and one thing, and then another one got injured, and then here I am, the 3rd choice hooker, getting my start. So that probably with my age at the time, I was just a little bit sneaky, and that's how I got my start. So I was made up by that first game, and then just rolled into never looked back after that first game.
Then obviously from New Zealand you came over to England, so
yeah.
What was that like for going to England the second time with Hull?
Yeah, so obviously from the Warriors I went to Hull. Haven't been in England before. We knew what to expect. We had a young son who was 2 at the time, and we came over. And I always remember people saying, I've signed to Hull. And they're like, you're going to Hull? And I'm like, what have we done here? What's wrong with Hull? And it's probably the best thing they could have done, because our expectation was so low, and when we went there, it was like, well, it's not that bad, you know. It's just like everywhere else. It's got its rough parts and it's got its good parts. So we enjoyed our time at Hull in the 3 years down there, and again lucky enough to play in a Challenge Cup grand final, which again didn't win. But yeah, again played there and really enjoyed it, and then now I'm here at my 3rd season at Widnes.
And your career at Widnes has been a successful one. Obviously 2015 you were the players player, and then obviously now you're in the leadership group. So how fondly in terms of your career do you look at the Widnes experience?
Oh, it's been almost, I've really enjoyed my time here, and you know, I always say that you know, I wasn't the most talented player growing up, but I worked hard, and it's always been with me throughout my career, and it's you know, it's probably a reason why I'm still playing now. You know, I told you before, talent only lasts for so long, but hard work is with you forever. It's an attitude thing. So you know, that first year I come down, you know, I've been quite lucky. I've, you know, touched wood, but I've not had any serious injuries over my career. And that's just down to luck. You know, I know young guys have blown their knees out, and I've just, you know, I'm the old bloke at training, and I'm running around like a young bloke, partly because I've had no injuries. So you know, I'm happy.
And obviously today's 250th game, so what would that be like, you know, going out with your family, leading them out at the game, hitting that milestone? How does that feel?
It's only been 8 years of my first grade career, so it's gone quite fast to get to 250, and I was really really proud because of where I've come from, and because you've constantly been told that you've never been good enough, or you never make it, and then, you know, 250 games coming up, you know, I was really happy, and we made up.
Well, thanks for your time, and thanks for sharing your career.
Cheers, mate. No worries.